This is the Clean Energy Show with Brian Stockton and James Whittingham.
Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham.
Whittingham?
Yes, Whittingham.
Whittingham.
I've changed my name
You said that differently.
I've changed my name to Whittingham.
Whittingham. Gotcha. Okay.
You want to know why?
Why?
You do, Brian. You don't realize it, but you do. It's because I hired somebody to do a voiceover for our show. Somebody nondescript somewhere far away, presumably on the planet. And we just heard it in the intro. And I knew that I could specify ham in the pronunciation, but I chose not to. I chose to roll the dice, and it came back hum. So, as people half the time call me Whittingham, which I'm sure is fine, and it's kind of the way the British would say it, and it's a British name. But it seems like half the people call me Whittingham, which I never liked. But since I spent $16 on this, I'm going to choose to call myself Whittingham from now on the show.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. So how are you? You, Brian Stockton, just got back from a major trip for our show. In the interest of science and podcast, you traveled by yourself in your Tesla Model 3 during a pandemic from Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. How many kilometers to Vancouver on the West Coast?
It's about 1,700 kilometers.
1,700 kilometers. That's a lot of kilometers. That's over 1,000 miles.
Yeah, well, I do have obviously a lot to talk about in terms of that. And I'm also working on a video. I shot video at all the SuperCharger stations. That's not quite edited yet. I hope to have that ready for next week's episode. So you can always look at that next week.
So we'll debut that next week. We'll plug it next week on the YouTube channel.
But yeah, I've been wanting to buy an electric car for many years now, and I probably should have done what you did, which was to buy a used Leaf and sort of used it as a city car. But what I decided to do was wait, because I thought that the longer range electric cars were coming. And so finally bit the bullet, bought the Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. That's what I have. And yeah, ever since I was thinking about buying an electric car, a trip to Vancouver has been on my mind. I really like Vancouver. It's the home of my favorite podcasts. A lot of my favorite music comes from Vancouver, comedians.
Podcast tourism is something I've never considered. I mean, what do? Just be happy that you're in the place that your favorite podcasts come from, or is there monuments?
I didn't really go to any monuments because there's a pandemic.
I know, but there's no podcast monuments. Do me a favor. Since this is a podcast, let us know what your favorite podcasts are from Vancouver, if you don't mind sharing that personal information.
Yeah, well, Stop Podcasting Yourself is kind of the main one. And if there wasn't a pandemic, I probably would have visited some of the sites. It's a Vancouver show, so there's a lot of Vancouver places that come up a lot on the show, like the Kingsgate Mall comes up a lot. And, I might have gone to the Kingsgate Mall if there wasn't a pandemic.
Yes.
But yeah, Vancouver has, Retail Nightmares, This Sounds Serious, lots of great podcasts done in Vancouver.
Okay. Well, it's good. A shout out to some other podcasts, because that's what you're supposed to do when you do a podcast. You're supposed to be a community. So that's good.
We often talk about how, I'm an optimist.
Sure.
And so I was really excited about this road trip because I am an optimist. But, it's been a long time since I've gone on a really long road trip. So I really forgot how difficult it is. It's really hard to drive that far.
It is. It's hard when you have kids screaming at you, but in a way they kind of keep you alert. But before we get to that, what made you change your mind about going during the pandemic? Let's start with that.
Well, I think I timed it well in a sense, whereas, the numbers for Canada were starting to go down to kind of a manageable level. Now, unfortunately, in the last few days, we keep hearing that the numbers are ticking up again. So I think I maybe wouldn't do the trip right now because I'm a little worried that those numbers are going up.
Right.
But it seemed like things were under control here in Saskatchewan and in BC, maybe a little bit less in Alberta. But, it seemed like the pandemic was manageable there for a time.
Were you originally going to do it with your family?
No, that was never really the plan.
No, just by yourself.
No.
So it's been a long time since
myself.
You've done a solo road trip. I don't think I ever have that long.
Was that right?
Not that long. No, I've always had people with me.
Yeah. So on the very first day, I did about 1,000 kilometers.
Ooh.
And, it was an interesting, problem because, you have to integrate the charging into it. So I'm glad that I did it to sort of prove that doing 1,000 kilometers in a day is quite doable.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do it again. And I took longer on the way back. So I took 2 days to drive to Vancouver, and I made it a 3-day drive on the way back.
Okay, so I've done some long trips in the last 3 years to the States, California, Arizona, Denver, from Saskatchewan. They're all, let's say, that's 16 to 24-hour driving, and that would be a daunting task in an EV, I would imagine. But it's also something that, is my utmost hardest thing that I would have for a car. So for you used a better route planner, which is in app form now, or was online?
Yeah, it's online and there is an app.
And you use that. You can do it with the Tesla, but this is a bit better than a Tesla?
Well, it's hard to say. I ended up kind of using all of them. So the first problem in terms of planning and navigation was in the Tesla computer, it was saying that the Moose Jaw SuperCharger was not working.
Really?
And that the Swift Current SuperCharger was not working.
Really?
So this had been going on for about a week before my trip, but I was checking in on PlugShare and checking in on the online forums because other people were posting about this. Hey, are these actually broken? Are they not working? But the responses seemed to be that they were in fact working, but for some reason they're listed as not working in the Tesla navigation. So like if you put in Vancouver as your destination, it was skipping over Moose Jaw and Swift Current because the computer thought that they were broken.
So what would it have you do then? And would you make it to that first point?
Well, no. So then the first one after that is Maple Creek, and it's too far. There's not enough charge. So I was 95% sure that all the superchargers were working. So I just took a risk and went and did it. And they were still working.
Okay. And that's after checking with people. Do you have an adapter for plugging into a third-party charging station?
No, I don't, which is unfortunate. So what you really need as a backup is a CHAdeMO adapter for Tesla. So there are, like Petro-Canada has a nationwide system of chargers, but yeah, it uses a CHAdeMO adapter. So you need the Tesla to CHAdeMO adapter, which is, $400 or $500.
Ooh.
So I really didn't want to buy that. So you just kind of have to hope that the Tesla ones are working.
Are you leaning towards that now?
I don't think so, because I don't think I'm going to do that many road trips, but I would say that it would be nice security to have as a backup.
Does the app PlugShare, which tells you about charging stations, did that have any updated information on those Tesla chargers that was contrary to what Tesla said?
Yes. And, the day before I left, somebody had posted from Moose Jaw saying it's listed as broken, but it's still working. And then I was going to check in on PlugShare, as a public service so that I could tell other people if they are actually working. But I couldn't get into the app. Like, it was not letting me in, and I tried to reset the password. Long story, I was doing something wrong. It was my fault.
Figured it out eventually.
I didn't end up doing any PlugShare check-ins.
Okay, so Moose Jaw is less than an hour away. Did you charge there?
Yeah, so on the way to Vancouver, I decided to stop at every single supercharger.
Okay, first of all, did it tell you to charge? Did any of the apps tell you to charge there?
Well, no, but that's where I say, I kind of had to use a combination of Google Maps and the car navigation and a better route planner and I ended up sort of planning my route kind of one stop at a time. So, I just put in the navigation Moose Jaw as my first destination.
Right.
So that,
just for simplicity.
Because I was stopping at every one, I just kept resetting it for each supercharger.
Okay, so you got to Moose Jaw. All the chargers seemed to be working. I thought the one was vandalized, like a sign was vandalized or something like that. Anything like that there?
Oh, I didn't see that. I just tried one and it seemed to work.
Okay.
And because I was stopping at every supercharger on the way to Vancouver, they were all pretty quick charges,
We've neglected to point out that you have a Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus, which has 402 kilometers of range.
Yeah, and the superchargers tend to be about 150 kilometers apart, roughly.
Okay, so you, that's an overall range for the EPA highway test, which is a mixture of city, freeway, and highway driving.
Yeah.
So with an electric car, you get less range on the highway. It's less efficient to drive on the highway, and that's the reverse of a combustion engine vehicle. Do you have any idea on say, ideal conditions, what your range would be on the highway at, say, whatever you drive, 100 and 110?
Yeah, I would just have to guess, like probably 325 would be the accurate highway rating, something like that.
Okay. So you've got, if you had one of the supercharged, if they are 150 kilometers apart, let's say they are, always,
yep.
that if one wasn't working, you would still be able to make it to the second one.
Yeah, and because I was a little nervous about, like, if the Swift Current one had been broken, I would have probably had to stay there overnight.
Oh.
So I was also charging up more than I needed to, because it's like, okay, well, if Swift Current really is broken, I want enough charge to get to Maple Creek, which is the next one. And I think it would have worked.
So there's a Tesla SuperCharger in Swift Current and Maple Creek? Okay, yeah, Maple Creek is halfway between Swift Current and Medicine Hat. It's what, an hour away or something? An hour?
Yeah, again, another probably 150 kilometers roughly.
Okay. And is it actually in Maple Creek?
Yeah, so that is an odd one, because the town of Maple Creek is about 5 minutes off the main highway, off the number one. So the supercharger is 5 minutes off the highway.
That's unfortunate.
It is a bit unfortunate. And so I didn't stop at that one on the way back. I made sure that I had enough to get to the next one. So yeah, it's a lovely little town, but it's a bit odd that it's a full 5 minutes off the highway.
Full of coronavirus, by the way. Right.
Oh yeah.
Right now, there's an outbreak on Hutterite colonies, and that part of it's in the community as well. And they're listing all these different locations, like banks, co-op stores, Canadian Tires, all the places that people go. There's all warnings about them that the people who are contagious have been there. Yeah, there's a big outbreak there as far as Saskatchewan standards go.
And I, definitely tried to limit my contact, and, if you don't have to go in somewhere, and usually you don't. So
did you wipe down your hands after using the cable?
But the fastest charging I got was in Canmore, Alberta. And all the ones up till then, like the Saskatchewan ones and the first ones in Alberta, are all version 3, 250 kilowatts.
Including Alberta?
Yeah. My car is supposed to max out at 170, but the fastest charge I got was 145 kilowatts, and that was in Canmore, and that was a version 2. So for my particular model, it doesn't matter too much if it's a version 2 or 3 charger.
Okay. It doesn't, eh?
And the other thing with the version 2 chargers is they actually two of them share a power supply.
Right.
So they're 150 kilowatts, but if another person, like there's an A unit and a B unit, and if somebody's plugged into both of them, then your max is half that. It splits the 150 kilowatts between the two.
Okay,
but that wasn't really an issue for when I was there.
Let's talk about. I have Twitter open, and glory holes is trending for some reason.
Let's not get into that. No.
What the hell? Can't go on Twitter anymore with some weird things trending. Anyway, I wanted to ask you, how busy were the superchargers? In Saskatchewan, I'm assuming they were dead empty.
Yeah, dead empty in Saskatchewan, and then the first couple in Alberta, completely empty. It wasn't until Canmore that somebody else was there, and there's only 4 chargers, but there was only one other person there.
Okay.
And then the only ones that were really busy were Merritt, BC and Hope, BC,
where
which
are those
on
places?
The Coquihalla Highway.
Oh, okay.
And this is a high-speed highway. It's a 120-kilometer speed limit, and it's through the mountains. It's an excellent highway, like often 6 lanes.
Oh, really?
So you can go really fast, but it means you also use up a lot of energy. So by the time I left the Merritt SuperCharger, there was a lineup to get in.
Oh, really? Really? Like how big of a lineup?
Yeah.
Multiple cars?
There was 2 cars waiting,
Okay.
but one thing, when you get to a high-use supercharger, you plug in the car, and a message comes up on the screen, and it says, "This is a high-use supercharger, so we've set your max to 80% of the battery." And then it explains that you can override that if you want, but they would prefer that people only charge up to 80% and get out of there.
It's very slow after 80% anyway, right?
Exactly. And, this is the other thing with these max charging speeds. Like, it's nice to have the 250 kilowatt charger, but yeah, the fastest I got was 145 and it immediately drops off. Then you're at 100, then you're at 80. So you do a lot of the charging really only at, 50, 60, 70 kilowatts, that sort of thing.
Okay, before we get too far, let's talk about how much time you spent at each of them. You were scared about the second stop in Saskatchewan in Swift Current, right? So you charged at Moose Jaw for how long?
Well, I didn't keep precise notes. But the gist is that it's basically what the Better Route Planner app said.
Right.
So I don't have the exact figures, but that first day was about 1,000-kilometer drive, and my charging would have been like an hour and 15 minutes, about that.
Oh, well, shit. I mean, I spend, when we do a 10-hour trip,
yeah,
we easily spend an hour and 15 minutes not traveling.
Yeah.
Like 40 minutes for lunch. You think you can get in and out of there in 15 minutes. I'm barking orders at the kids, and I'm serious this time, and it's 40 minutes. And they're going back for an extra French fries or something, or an apple pie. And then you gotta, well, first of all, there's 2 meals in there. So I would probably take, and it's hard to drive for 10 hours.
Yeah, you want to stop
even
and
if
walk
you
around.
could. So you have to mentally stop. So I would take let's say 2 half-hour breaks and a couple of 15-minute breaks. So I think you did very well then.
But when you get to those busy superchargers, you can't really just leave your car there and go have a meal, because you got to get in and out. And in fact, there are idle charges if you leave your car there too long. Tesla will charge you an idle charge.
Okay. Well, what are we talking here? Give me an example. Is it going to say, okay, half hour to 80%?
Well, at that one, it was probably 15 minutes to 80%, because I was stopping at every charger.
Right.
They were all quick charges.
Right. You're taking pictures and a little bit of video.
Yeah. But, if you're going to have a meal, you do have to plan it, because like I stopped for a meal in Kamloops, but, like I ate at a Cora breakfast place, but it was about a 10-minute walk to get to Cora. So another 10 minutes to get back, and another, 20 minutes to eat your meal.
This is a problem.
So it was about 40 minutes. So I would have been in danger of maybe having some idling fees. I timed it well, so it wasn't a problem. But, I had to keep an eye when I was eating my meal on, the app on your phone will tell you, okay, 3 out of 4 stalls being used. So I had to keep an eye on that, because if 4 out of 4 stalls was being used, I would have been anxious to get back and unplug my car so that other people could use it.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. And my criticism about the Tesla SuperChargers in Canada is that they're not close to eating places. Do you have other options to eat at there aside from Cora?
Well, you'll have to watch my video coming out next week. But there was a shopping mall across the street. But when I went on the way to Vancouver, it was a Sunday morning, so that was closed. But if the mall is open, then you've got a food court, then that's really good and really close.
Yeah.
But it's the locations are often not ideal, so you really do have to plan your meal breaks. And I think in many cases, you really got to sit in your car for 20 minutes, charge up, and then just drive to where you want to eat. I think that's the more.
This is surprising information to me. And I know there's lots of people listening who have similar experiences and are doing things like this, including people in Saskatchewan. So I want to use this opportunity to invite people to contact us and share some of your stories about doing the inside Tesla supercharging network experiences. I want to also point out that I changed the Twitter handle to Clean Energy Pod, because I was sick of saying the other way, CLN Energy Show. So I'm not going to do it. I refuse to do it. Clean Energy Pod is our Twitter handle, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com, and speakpipe.com/Clean Energy Show is the way you can get a hold of us. We'd love to hear what your supercharger experiences are like, and if you agree or disagree or have something to add to Brian's stories. Very fascinating, Brian. Would you say that a shopping mall is your favorite thing because you have access to a wide variety of food and a washroom?
Yeah, that is correct. It's a good,
maybe a little sock shopping on the side.
Yeah, and certain places like Merritt, BC, like there wasn't a shopping mall, but there was this sort of, roadside complex that had, like, there was a Burger King and a Denny's and a sort of a grill place all in the same building. Like, it's meant for people stopping on the highway.
Right.
So there's, good washrooms and so those places that are designed as roadside stops are also good too.
Okay. Plus you'd get Wi-Fi in a mall and
Yeah, for sure.
And it'd be, you wouldn't have to get a receipt or anything for the passcode. Okay, so we're into BC now. Yeah, where do the V3 superchargers stop?
Well, it's like half the Alberta ones were version 2 and half were version 3. I can't remember which exactly. Watch the video to see.
Okay.
And then when I got into Abbotsford, which is sort of the last stop before Vancouver, that was version 3, that it's in an underground parking, and there was a lot of stalls, I think 12 or 16 stalls, and they were all version 3. Really? So that was a great station.
Was that one busy, given that there were so many stalls? Was there multiple people?
On the way there, it was about half full, I would say.
Really?
So, yeah.
Was there places where you had options where I could go to A or B Tesla station and you were starting to decide things like that? When I got...
No, not on this trip. I mean, once you're in Vancouver, there's a few options, but I didn't end up charging at any right in Vancouver.
Okay, so your first day was a successful 1,000 kilometers. You spent an hour and 15 minutes charging, which ain't bad. I mean, if I was driving my SUV and towing a vehicle, I would have to stop every 2 hours on the dot and refuel my entire vehicle. And that would add up to... that would be an hour and 15 minutes pretty much.
For sure.
So that's actually quite remarkable that you achieved that. And yeah, it is a little bit different than a combustion vehicle. And you do have to think differently, but it's not that big a deal. I mean, I'm sure if you were doing trips on a regular basis, it'd be second nature to you. So tell us about your second day.
So then the second day, a little bit shorter. That's from Golden into Vancouver. So that was like 7 or 8 hours.
Now, did you have a hotel destination charger in Golden?
Yeah. So I booked a hotel that had a destination charger. So yeah, I was able to charge up overnight.
Well, tell us about that experience. Was it working? Did you have to go to the staff and say, I want the Tesla charger? Was anybody parked there?
Yeah, I had asked them ahead of time, because it said on the website they had one. And I was wondering, do I have to book this ahead of time? And they said, oh, hardly anyone uses it. It'll be fine. And it's right out front by the front step. So I asked them if I could park there, and they said yes. So that's
cool. So everybody gets to
really
see
handy to. It's super handy to charge at the hotel for sure.
Now, that's like a level 2 charger, similar to what you would have at home, right?
Yeah, so it would have taken 5 or 6 hours, but because I was able to charge at home before I left and then charge overnight in Golden, and I charged at a hotel in Vancouver, my free supercharger miles, like I had about 1,400 free supercharger miles, those lasted all the way to Vancouver and about halfway back to Regina. So I did have to pay for like the last 3 charging stops. So it did cost about $20 to do the charging.
$20 for 3 charging stops, which I'm thinking is like 500 kilometers ish.
Yeah, 500-600, maybe 700 or 800 even. Yeah.
Oh, that's hardly bad.
Yeah, it's more expensive than charging at home. Like it's a premium over what you pay on your home electricity bill, but of course you're paying for the convenience of super fast charging.
Right, which takes a lot of infrastructure and maintenance and things like that. And
yeah.
So that's very interesting. So you went how far was the trip again? 3,400 kilometers?
About 1,700 kilometers.
Both ways?
No, one way.
One way. So 3,400 kilometers for $20.
Yep.
Wow. And is there any way of getting more supercharger miles for free?
Yeah, well, everybody who buys a Tesla gets a referral code. So if somebody buys a Tesla and uses my referral code, maybe we should put that in the show notes or something, or on the YouTube page. But if anyone wants to use my referral code, I would get 1,500 more free kilometers, which would be awesome.
And we could send you off in some other direction.
Yeah, I'd love to go in the Winnipeg direction at some point. Sure.
Okay. Well, that's we'll do that. We won't be too pushy about it, people, but we'll put it out there. Everyone else does it. Why can't we?
Yeah.
Okay. So day 2 was. Remind me again, how many kilometers was it?
Well, that one was about 700 kilometers from, Golden into Vancouver.
So you started out early in the morning?
Yeah, I'm always up early, so left early, probably made it to Vancouver by 3 or 4 o'clock, but there was a huge traffic jam just after Abbotsford.
Really?
There was an accident ahead of us.
Ouch.
It was brutal because there's this one stretch of highway just after Abbotsford where it's only 2 lanes or 4 lanes, 2 lanes each way. But there's hardly any shoulder. It's this really old, crappy highway that millions of cars have to use.
Brother.
And of course, there was an accident up ahead, and an ambulance had to go through us from behind, and then 2 fire trucks went through, and I lost about an hour and a half from that ridiculous traffic jam.
Really?
But that's where I was able to use the Tesla autopilot and the auto steer function. So I found out that because we were creeping along at like 2-3 kilometers an hour most of the time, it was brutal. But I could turn on the auto steer function, and when you're going that slow, it actually doesn't bug you. Like, it takes about 5 minutes for it to bug you. So you can sit there with your hands off the wheel for about 5 minutes, and then it'll say, oh, touch the wheel to make sure you're still awake. So that was actually quite handy there.
Did you like autopilot?
It works best for me out here on the prairies where there's not that many cars around. I didn't like using it through the mountains. Like, you're on the curvy roads in the mountains. It just made me nervous to use it. So, but out here on the prairies where, there's very few cars around, it works great.
Okay. So the traffic jam, it was helpful.
The traffic jam, yeah, for sure. And also I think, like, I did try it in the twisty roads in the mountains, and it seemed like
nervously
it bugged you to touch the wheel even more frequently. Like, it's sort of like if there's more going on
interesting.
around you, it bugs you more frequently. But like I say, when we were creeping along at 3 kilometers an hour, it didn't bug me for like at least 5 minutes.
Well, that's good. I mean, that takes part of the stress away.
Yeah, and it gave me something to do while I sat in this ridiculous traffic jam.
Well, that sucks. I guess you don't want to hit a major metropolitan area at rush hour.
Yeah, and this would have been a Sunday, so not exactly rush hour, but it's a poorly designed section of road with no shoulders. It's just a nightmare.
Did you ever see the accident and what happened?
Yeah, there was definitely a couple of crunched cars when we finally made it to the end, and it was going through an underpass or a bridge going above us. So I don't know, like maybe somebody hit the bridge or something. I couldn't quite tell.
Oh, brother. Okay. There's always a nightmare when you're planning long trips and hitting major metropolitan areas, and then there's construction in the summertime. And yeah,
and that's the other thing I forgot about, because I do enjoy road trips and driving on the highway, but I tend to think of them as what it's like around here in Saskatchewan, where you have, endless highway. You can see the horizon thousands of miles ahead of you. There's hardly any cars. But even driving around Calgary, which is a very large city, like, they have a bypass so you don't have to drive through the city. But as soon as you hit like an hour away from Calgary, the traffic just gets crazy, and they're driving fast. So that's the other thing I forgot about is how difficult it can be to drive through major cities.
Did you, what kind of speeds are we looking at here?
Well, I usually, would go like 5 kilometers over the speed limit. So a lot of it's 110. A lot of it is 100 through the mountains. A lot of it is 90.
So you were driving that speed then? You were, not the most efficient speed?
Yeah, usually about 5 kilometers over the speed limit.
Did you open it up on a Coca-Cola?
Well, yeah. So I would have done about 125 there.
Was that fun?
The speed limit was 120. Yeah, it was fun. And it's nice to be able to pass semi-trucks through the mountains.
Yeah.
Because like semis have to slow down going up mountains because they just don't have the torque to keep their speed up. Until the Tesla semi comes, until the electric semis come. It's nice to be able to just put the hammer down and, very quickly pass one of these semis. That was really fun.
Okay. So yeah, no, I do understand that it is very instantaneous to pass in a Tesla, because you get that torque. You just tap the pedal and you imagine where you want to go, and you tap the pedal and you're there.
It was great.
So yeah, you get to Vancouver, and did you pick a hotel there that had destination charger?
No, so I stayed at the Sylvia Hotel, which is a very fantastic classic hotel right on English Bay in Vancouver. I used to stay there in the 90s, hadn't been for a while. But no, they don't have destination chargers, but I did ask them ahead of time, and they said there was regular outlets in the parkade. They have underground parking. So I just parked in a spot that had a regular outlet. And so, the car was just parked for 4 days. So I just left it sort of trickle charging and was able to leave with a full charge.
Like 100%?
I actually never went to 100 because the superchargers are so close together. I just charged to 90.
Okay. Okay. Most people on their first trip wouldn't do that. They'd be nervous and be going to 100%. But you're erring on the side of being nervous about your battery.
Yeah.
But Tesla batteries, they do all kinds of wonderful things.
Yeah, I definitely could have charged to 100. I just, at a certain point, I realized I just didn't need to, so I didn't.
Okay.
So the hotel was fantastic, and I have other Vancouver stories. But just as a little teaser here, my bike did get stolen.
What the hell? You brought a bike?
In Vancouver. So
you brought a bike?
I brought my bike with me in the car, but I'll get to that in a second. I have other sort of Vancouver stories here.
Oh, for fudge sakes.
So first of all, I met up with our very good friend Spiro.
Friend of the show.
And friend of the show. He's been living in Vancouver for quite a while. So I basically took the Spiro reality tour of Vancouver.
Nice. Was he wearing a mask?
We were not wearing masks, but I had my bike. So we biked through Stanley Park and around Vancouver at some of the sites. So that was a lot of fun. I met up with my friends Lisa and Paolo had a great story. He's from California, and he's a filmmaker type. And he said he was involved in when did the General Motors EV1 come out? Like 20 years ago?
I want to say 98, 99, 2000-ish.
So my friend Paolo was involved in some kind of an eco film festival in California when the EV1 came out, and General Motors came on as a sponsor for the festival and gave them a couple of EV1s for the festival. And so he had driven one before. I thought that was amazing.
Just for the duration of the festival.
Yeah, often festivals get donations from car companies because you need to drive people around. So, they actually drove around a couple of EV1s.
Well,
I thought that was cool.
Historic and remarkable. However, has he driven another electric car since?
I don't think so, no. Oh. And I did find that there's still a lot of confusion about electric vehicles. Like you and I are immersed in it, obviously, and talk about it all the time. But the general public is still fairly confused about electric vehicles and how you charge them and all that kind of thing.
Wow. I know. And it's I get these questions daily in the parking lots. And it's just... it seems strange after a while that it's that confusing, but it's really not that different than a regular car.
Yeah, like people don't realize you can just plug them into any outlet. It's sort of like, I think people assume it must be more complicated, otherwise we'd all be driving electric vehicles.
Yeah. Which we should be and could be.
But it's so simple. You can it's slow, but literally charge them in any outlet.
For about 7 kilometers an hour in the summertime, right? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So, did he like driving the EV1? Did he say anything about that?
Well, yeah, he said it was really zippy. It was really fast.
And I'm sure, compared to what we have now, compared to your Tesla, that it wouldn't even compare. Did you give him a ride in your Tesla? No.
No, we didn't end up riding in it, but
your Tesla just was parked. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to get to the bike story?
Let me just go down my list here. What else?
Erotic massage.
Oh, the weather was fantastic. That was the other thing I was going to say. The whole time I was in Vancouver, it was basically 22 and sunny the whole time.
Well, that's almost worth getting your bike stolen for. I mean, it's...
a little bit warmer, like about 25 on the last day there. And I found out that when it hits about 25, people in Vancouver think that's really hot.
That would be like 40 here, I would imagine, because it's so rare that it gets there that people probably faint, I imagine.
Yeah.
What was 25 like in Vancouver? Any different than 25 here?
Well, it did feel a bit, maybe, I don't know. It did feel a bit warmer than normal, but I don't know.
Okay.
Might depend on the humidity. I'm not sure.
Okay. Not a cool ocean breeze or anything like that, or?
Not exactly, no.
What else do you have before we get to the bike story?
I think I'm ready for the bike story.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready. There's nothing that bothers me more than a stolen bike. Well, first of all, let's talk about what your bike is. What was her?
It was a Cannondale Quick 4, and I bought it a few years ago.
So it's a comfort bike?
No, it's I guess you call it a hybrid bike.
Oh,
it's sort of like it's got a straight handlebar. It's a bit like a mountain bike, but it's got the thinner tires.
Thinner tires, thinner wheels, more efficient on pavement, rolls quicker, less work from you, unnecessary about going off-road. Although you can go off-road a little bit on those light trails. So, nice bike. You probably paid $600 for it, I'm guessing.
It was about $800, I think. But the main thing is that I got really, like, it took me a long time, because I was complaining about this on a previous episode that, I spent $800 and the bike really wasn't ready. Like, I kept getting flat tires, so I had to replace the tires. It took me a long time to figure out what kind of lock to buy and get that set up, get a belt, get some fenders on it, because I like to have fenders. So that's the part that annoys me the most, is that I finally got the bike set up the way I liked it. And then it got stolen. But I haven't had a bike stolen since I was a teenager. So, it hasn't been too bad for me.
How long have you had the bike?
Like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so it's pretty new to you, and probably didn't want to spend another $800 on a bike today.
No. But so here's what happened is when I threw it in the back of the car, fold the seats down and carried it. Uh-huh. I didn't have a lot of luggage, so that was easy to do. But when you get to your destination, you sort of have to decide what to do with it. And hotels often have bike lockups, and the Sylvie had said they had something like that. Uh-huh. But I thought, well, I've got a Tesla. It's got Sentry Mode. Like, the safest place for the bike is probably in the car.
Yeah.
It's got Sentry Mode. It's got an alarm. Like, as soon as anybody gets close to the car, it starts, the screen comes
Brian,
on.
This story's getting dark. It's just, I don't like where this is going.
So, and it took me a long time to actually figure out how they did it, because I thought, what, are these thieves so smart they could defeat the Sentry Mode? No, here's what happened. So when I arrived in Vancouver, I had been recording video clips on the car dash cam. So the Tesla has several cameras in it, and you can press a button on the screen and you can save the footage that the car is shooting. And I was using this because I was making this video about the different superchargers.
Oh, this is an expensive video.
Yeah. So when I arrived in Vancouver, I took out the the memory card from the Sentry Mode so I could take it up to the room, copy the footage, and then put it back. But when you do that, when you remove the memory card, it shuts off Sentry Mode and doesn't turn it on again. So unbeknownst to me, Sentry Mode was off. So that was my first mistake.
The car with Sentry Mode off, it doesn't yell at people or tell them to back away from the vehicle or what?
I mean, it might do that. Like if somebody was trying to break in, it might. But here's the other problem is I somehow accidentally left it unlocked.
Oh, gee. This is like a plane accident. There's a confluence of events that led up to the disaster. It wasn't one thing. It was.
No, it was a perfect storm of user error.
Well, this is disappointing on every level.
Oh, I know. It's the worst.
Oh.
So normally with the Tesla, your phone is the key. So you just walk up to the car, it detects that the phone is nearby, and then you can open it and you can use the car. And then when you leave the car and you walk away, once you get about 20 feet away, it just beep, you hear a beep, and it automatically locks the car. So you get used to this cycle of never having to lock the car because it just does it automatically. So, but every once in a while, the phone doesn't work. Like the car can't detect that the phone is there, and you're trying to open the door and you look like an idiot because
you look like a thief.
For whatever reason it doesn't. Yeah. So every once in a while, you have to either wait a few minutes to finally recognize that your phone is there, or you take out the key card. Like the car comes with these credit card things, and you can use that as a key. You just hold it up to the pillar on the car, and then it unlocks. But so at some point when it was in the parking garage on the last night, I used the key card because I was showing the car to some people. And so I unlocked with the key card and then walked away, and it didn't lock on its own like it normally does.
Really?
Yeah.
Elon, you owe Brian a bike.
And, if I'd looked at the app, like you can look at the app and it shows you if the car is locked or unlocked, so I won't make that mistake again. But that's what happened. The car was unlocked.
So
Sentry Mode was off.
Oh. No, this is the worst bike theft story ever. Your brand new Tesla, which cost $1 million, let you down.
And here's the last annoying part of the story. So the morning I left, like I woke up at about 5, like I usually do. And then I checked out at about 6. I went downstairs. Well, actually, first I went to the car. Like I took my suitcases to the car. And that's when I realized, oh, crap, my bike has been stolen. So I loaded up the car. Then I went to the front desk to check out. And she said, oh, how was your stay? And I said, well, it was great, but my bike just got stolen from the parking garage. And the woman was so apologetic because she actually saw the guy. Like they have a camera there behind the counter. And she saw a guy on a bike at 5 a.m., like just an hour earlier, ride out of the parking garage on a bike.
Who steals a bike at 5 a.m.? Who? Who?
And I was up at 5. If I had left at 5, I would have been fine.
You're the only man in the world who doesn't drive a tractor who's up at 5 in the morning, and this guy is there stealing your bike. What the hell?
He's there stealing my bike. So she saw the guy on the monitor, but just assumed that it was his bike because like I had done that on like the day before I went biking at 6 a.m. in Stanley Park. Sure. And what did I do? I went down to the parking garage. I got my bike out of the car and I biked out of there. So it just looked to her like any other, normal tenant of the hotel. So, but she felt really bad that she had seen the guy and didn't stop him.
Well, how could she stop him?
Well, yeah, that's true. I'm not sure what you would do, but, she said that they could probably save the video footage and pass it along to the police or something, but I don't know. We'll see.
I'm sure they'll be on top of that one.
Yeah, obviously, the police have other things to worry about other than stolen bikes.
Wow, what a journey. And I'm sorry our time is up. The show's over, but no, it's... okay, so you're going to go through the video, you're going to edit the video, you're probably going to have some more thoughts on this for next week's show, and maybe we can get back to some of that then and some conclusions that you might have. Terrible. Let's just give me a quick overview of what you would do differently.
Well, I would just make sure the car is locked. That was really the only issue on the trip. The driving and the charging went great. Like, you should really only drive, like six hours in a day is really like a nice, comfortable amount.
Well,
so I know now not to do 1,000 kilometers in a day because it's kind of unpleasant. But overall, the driving was great. The trip was great. It was just that bike getting stolen.
Well, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. Would you put a tarp over it? I mean, you're not supposed to leave value. I would worry about somebody breaking a window just to get at the bike. But then you have this. I
thought about that too, but I thought, like, there's so many Teslas in Vancouver, like the thieves must be aware.
Yeah.
that, I'm surprised he even tried the car because he would just assume that Sentry Mode would
have
be
a good
on.
visual of him, unless he was wearing a COVID mask.
Yeah, but there was tons of Teslas in Vancouver, and we also, just by accident, drove past the Tesla delivery center in Vancouver and was able to see a couple of Model Ys that were parked.
Oh, really?
there.
What did you think?
Just had a quick look driving by. They look fine, but yeah, tons of Teslas in Vancouver. It's, popular there.
Right. I found that was the case when we were driving from San Francisco to LA. As soon as we hit Silicon Valley, you couldn't swing a cat without hitting a Tesla. Yeah. It was just incredible. Or other electric cars. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, hopefully that spreads and that becomes something that we see everywhere. So let's get to the news of the week in clean energy as we forge towards the 2030 end of this podcast when we are finally at ease with everything that's been done in the clean tech world and the prices have come down and everything's taking over. What do you have for us this week in news?
Well, I thought this was quite interesting. Autotrader.ca is reporting that Taiga launches new electric personal watercraft. So these are...
Oh, I saw that. Seadoos is sort of the brand name like snowmobile. Personal watercraft. Yeah. No, it's interesting because I spent time at your lake and there was personal watercraft all around. I did notice they've become quieter than normal. But my partner Jan was complaining about all the gas smell from them, when she's out on the kayak or swimming, and it's like, yeah, we don't need that. So yeah, although they have become quieter, they would be even quieter in electric form, and there wouldn't be that smell, because when you're in nature in a lake, you don't want to be smelling gas.
No, and that's why, anytime I've been out at the lake, like something like a canoe, to me, is what you should use at the lake. But sure, like a lot of people just have these noisy, gas-powered.
They're in it for the adrenaline rather than, some people go and fish, I suppose, but mostly it's adrenaline from my observations. But yeah, like you said, it's a Quebec company, and they made snowmobiles, right? Electric snowmobiles?
Yeah, and so the cheapest model of the new personal watercraft starts at $15,000 US, which isn't too bad.
Yeah, although you can get one for 8 or 9, I understand, of a gas version. However, at the lake, you would see people carrying these giant jerry cans. Like, I don't even know how they carry them. Like, they must weigh 60 pounds. Lugging them down from the cottage, from the truck to the cottage to the cottage to the dock, and every day they're gassing things up. I'm not sure how that would work with the power cable, though, in the water, but yeah. I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you charge them exactly, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I look forward to that. Yeah, I think a lot of people who aren't following this space don't realize how much electrification is taking over other fields, including watercraft, all the way from hybrid, shipping vessels to boats and ferries. Ferries are a big thing, a big market, because they go a short distance and they have the same dock each time, so they can power up at each dock. And there's an electric seaplane in Vancouver, which is an operation, right? So, yeah.
Yep.
It's starting to go in other spaces, which is a good thing. And as the economics get cheaper. Anything else this week?
Well, I just thought it was interesting. On our last episode, we were talking about things like efficiency and how, I think refrigerators could be more efficient. And we talked about heating and cooling systems. There's rumors that Tesla's working on it. But yeah, there just seem to have been a few stories this week about that, about efficiency in terms of home heating and cooling. So Electrek had a story that's headlined, "Your AC unit is hurting the planet and your wallet, and here's how to fix that." There are so many air conditioners in the world right now. Like this is one of the reasons our energy consumption is so high. There's a lot of developing countries that didn't used to have air conditioners. Now they have them.
Take a country like India, and it's hot. And as the middle class explodes there, the first thing they're going to buy is an air conditioner, whether it's a small unit or a central unit. And yeah, they use a lot of electricity, especially when it's a humid and hot climate.
So there's a lot that can be done to make these more efficient. And I just thought that was interesting because we were talking about that last week, and then different news stories. There's in some places where they're changing the minimum setting. Like,
I saw that.
Like a lot of people, the other problem is they'll set the air conditioning down to, like 68 Fahrenheit or something and cool way more than they need to. But you can actually set a minimum temperature on some of these units. And some countries require that the minimum is up more, above 70, that kind of thing.
Right. So India, speaking of India, they actually mandated a 75 Fahrenheit / 24 Celsius air conditioner as of this year.
Exactly, yeah.
So that could cut the national energy consumption by 24% for households and 20% for businesses, which is not insignificant. And also, if you think about it, and this is something we were talking about last week, you really don't need to have it at 20 degrees in your house when you're normally comfortable at 22 or something like that. So yeah, it's you save a great deal of money. I would if you're spending a lot of money on air conditioning, and we're not one of those countries or areas because we're dry and cold at night, and I might use my air conditioner later today when the humidex gets up to 36. I might fire it up. But I'm not going to keep it that low. I'm just going to keep it on enough to take a little bit of humidity out of the air.
And of course, it's a thing you can design your buildings for too. Like, there's a way to design buildings so that they reject heat in the summer and collect heat in the winter. Your house is sort of like that. So there's just tons that can be done in terms of efficiency.
I think that people are not going to welcome that, though. They're not going to go, buy an air conditioner in Arizona and say, well, it only goes down to 75. That's the lowest.
Yeah, there might be some pushback.
However, if you are in Arizona and you're keeping it below 74, that sucker is running constantly this time of year. And you're probably going to be used to hotter temperatures anyway, even more so than us. So 75 would actually feel quite cool. And 24. All right. So what else do you have before we get to the lightning round?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. There's a couple of cars that have been coming out. The Volkswagen ID3 is supposed to be on sale now. I haven't seen any sort of customer reviews yet, but they're supposed to be selling that.
Really?
The Polestar 2 has been released in some countries. This is the subsidiary of Volvo, so the Polestar 2 is a bit of a Model 3 competitor, and it's gotten some really good reviews online.
And these are significant, Brian, because they're making a lot of them and they're selling them, unlike those bastards at Hyundai and Kia, which are keeping them to themselves.
And so that's unfortunate. We're not going to get the Polestar here anytime soon, I don't think.
Guess they're pushing them in Europe, right?
Yeah, and this is what I've been saying for a while, is that, I think North America, we're going to be stuck with more gas options because they got to sell these somewhere. Europe has stronger regulations, so the limited number of electric cars are going to be funneled to Europe and Norway and, these places with tough regulations. So we're always going to be last here where we are, I think.
Okay.
And the Nissan has unveiled the Aria?
Yes.
Aria?
I don't know.
Starting at $40,000 US. It's a crossover SUV. Only, again, in Japan for the foreseeable future, but that's
interesting. And it's 2 years away, and it'll only charge 150 kilowatts. So you got a 2022 car coming to North America that charges at 150 kilowatts. I'm disappointed in that, especially from Nissan. The only good thing about it is that they do have liquid cooling in their battery, which is something that they've avoided in the Nissan Leaf and the various iterations of that in the last... Well, it's almost 12 years now that's been around. They refused to put in liquid cooling because of the price, and the batteries have degraded, supposedly, and they can't charge repetitively on the highway very well. By the time you get to the third charge, it slows down because the battery's getting so hot. So they did do that, but 150 kilowatts is not good enough for 2022. That is the future. That is 2 years in the future, in a rapidly changing future, and I'm disappointed in that. I'm also disappointed that Nissan has been making so many Leafs and doing a good job with them that they took 12 years to get to the second model. I mean, come on.
It's unfortunate. And again, like Tesla's really forced the hand of all these other car companies. Without Tesla, we wouldn't be getting anything from Nissan anytime soon.
So I would trust Nissan, unlike some of these other car companies. I think I would trust other people too. But I mean, as far as having a track record, Nissan has a good long track record, and you could say, okay, I'm going to trust this car. I know what to expect, and it's going to be an improved version, but I just don't like the stats. And I hope that, because that's part of the mass adoption thing that we're fighting for here, requires fast charging, because you want to be able to use it on your worst case scenario on the highway and stop for 10, 15, 20 minutes. You don't want to be there for 40, 45 minutes every time.
Well, I might push back a bit against that, because like I say, the fastest charging I got was 145 kilowatts.
And it was fine.
And it was fine. So I don't know. I think 150 might be okay. Obviously, higher would be better, but I think that's
Point
okay.
taken. Point taken. I got the lightning round for you. Brian, the London Underground could be 100% electric by 2030. Does anyone care? Do you care?
Wait a minute. Isn't it already electric?
No, it says it's not. It says it's going to be 100% solar-powered electric by 2030. I think that means there's parts of it that are non-electric. And I don't care, because it's only a train. It's not going to change the world. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the other thing I noticed in Vancouver, they still have electric trolley buses in Vancouver, so those are kind of fun to see.
Tesla Model 3, and we're running out of time. Tesla Model 3 retains 90% of its value over 3 years, study shows.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's one of the reasons that I bought a Tesla Model 3, was I figured the resale value would be quite good, so that's great.
Yeah, especially in Canada. It's even better in Canada, where there's fewer of them. The like I could probably sell my Leaf at a profit because there's none here, and I just did my own importing from Quebec.
Yeah.
Okay, Apple will hit their Paris target 20 years sooner than needed. And they plan to do this, hit their Paris targets by 2030. And I guess originally they would need to do it by 2050. So they unveiled its plan to become carbon neutral across its entire business, manufacturing supply chain, and the product life cycle by 2030. That means if you go buy an iPhone in 2030, you won't have to worry about the carbon footprint of that manufacturing. It'll be offset and reduced and net zero.
Yeah, I would imagine the manufacturing would probably be the trickiest part of that. But servers is another big thing. Like Apple has huge number of cloud servers, and the amount of electricity that those things use. Just think about just YouTube, right? Like there's something like 600,000 hours of video gets uploaded to YouTube every day. So imagine all the server farms. So all these big tech companies like Google and Apple, they have these enormous server farms that just use a ton of electricity. So for them to go carbon neutral is, it's great. That's awesome. And it probably makes financial sense too.
Well,
like
sure.
To make your own electricity than having to buy it from
it's
someone.
going to be cheaper than somebody else's. If you're using that much electricity, then you might as well make it yourself when you can. The company is already carbon neutral for its global corporate operations, and this new commitment means that by 2030, Apple devices sold will have a net zero impact. So they're doing that far ahead of schedule. So also they're working on low carbon product design so that the design uses less carbon and less energy and more recycled materials and things like that. Okay, Brian, Saskatchewan, our province, gets a Tesla mobile tech for the first time. How do you feel about that? Does that change your thinking?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I did kind of wait until the SuperCharger network arrived here. I knew that there was no mobile tech at the time when I ordered my car and when it arrived. I haven't needed any service. I'm not sure when I will, but that's great that there's one here. I think he's based in Saskatoon, but it's a mobile tech, so we'll come down to Regina if you need some service.
So they would have people sort of come through the province, like a mobile tech would come through and say, I'll be in Regina on this date. If you have any problems, give me an email.
Yeah, previously that was the what would happen. Somebody would come from Calgary or Winnipeg. I'm not sure.
Or you'd have to drive all the way to Calgary. Some people have had to drive there to get things done, and hopefully some of that.
Yeah, that's true. Some people have done that, gone to Calgary.
And finally, U.S. motorists have driven 25% fewer miles during the pandemic, but died at a higher rate. So this is just for May during the pandemic. They drove 25% fewer miles, but the death rate was higher. Fatalities per miles driven jumped 23.5% during the month, according to the National Safety Council, and they attribute it to a riskier driving during lighter traffic volume.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
People are idiots, and that has not changed in history, and it doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. Listen, Brian, I was at the store trying to get some pool test strips for my water. During the upcoming heat wave, I have to make sure my water is properly chlorinated, or it will turn to algae, and everywhere's sold out. I went to Canadian Tire, and I'm expecting to find it there, and it's all gone. I hope they're not using this for the pandemic to test people and save lives, because I need my test strips for my pool. I have a very luxurious lifestyle, and I need to keep wet. I can't overheat. So that's what I'll be doing for the rest of the day, is trying to track down pool test strips in my Nissan Leaf.
Well, there's nothing more luxurious than an above-ground pool next to an oil pipeline.
The pipeline plane always tips its wing to me as it flies over and gives a wave as it flies at low altitude. To make sure.
Oh, and also the co-op refinery that we often talk about, they found some heavy metals leaking out of that.
Yeah, it's all a good time. Yeah. And I heard some weird rumbling noises. It was like Godzilla was in the distance coming from the refinery, which is quite a ways away from me. I shouldn't hear things. And, I don't know what the hell's going on. But it's all terrible, and I look forward to a day that my children and maybe even me gets to see that it's not here. Anyway, Brian, we look forward to next week when we'll talk more about your trip to Vancouver and some of the conclusions that you came to, and we'll look forward to the review of your video, which I'm sure will be spectacular and far superior than any other video ever made on the Tesla SuperCharger network in Western Canada. Am I fair to say that?
Well, I am a professional award-winning
Yes,
filmmaker.
you are. And I expect that level of dedication to this project on the Tesla SuperChargers. Anyway, I'm James Whittingham, and I'll see you next week on the Clean Energy Show, where we talk about the fun things as the world moves forward in this wonderful changing world, even though there's a pandemic, Brian.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.